What is your sense of what Israel could do in terms of retaliating against Iran after the barrage of ballistic missiles into Israel earlier this week? It has promised to do so. The United States has said stay away from nuclear assets. There's a very big fear in the energy world that oil facilities could be struck. What is your assessment right now of what could occur?
Well, I mean, I think, again, to come back, what we have learned in the past 12 months is that we really need to expect the worst. I think Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, and his coalition believe that this is a golden opportunity for Israel to really change the geopolitical landscape. Benjamin Netanyahu, as you said last week, he made it very clear. This is a turning historical point. He wants to make the Middle East in his own image. He wants to destroy not only the axis of resistance, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and the Iraqis and the Syrians. He wants to go for the head of the axis of resistance, Iran. My fear is that Israel could attack not only the oil facilities, it could really attack the nuclear program. As to the Americans, basically a statement that they would not really support an Israeli attack on nuclear program of Iran, I don't take it very seriously, because Benjamin Netanyahu knows very well that Joe Biden is a lame duck, that this is really a very transitional period. Benjamin Netanyahu can do anything, and get away with it. I mean, look, think of the civilian casualties in Lebanon in the past, 2 weeks. Have you heard a single word where I am here in the UK or the United States, condemnation of the killing of civilians, children, women, and medics? And the reality is, I think what you have is that Benjamin Netanyahu is running the clock on Joe Biden because he wants his best ideological friend, Donald Trump, to recapture the White House, because Donald Trump has promised to give Benjamin Netanyahu what he wants. So this is why I fear the worst. And regardless, even if he does not attack Iran's nuclear program, if he attacks the oil fields, Iran will most likely respond on a much, much bigger scale. So the reality is, either way, the situation really, the future, the trend is escalation, more escalation, more escalation. And sadly and tragically, really, more civilians will be killed and more civilians will be displaced. This is really a catastrophic humanitarian situation, regardless of where we stand on the political arguments here.
I want to talk about what the next step is for Israel in terms of retaliating against Iran. It's promised to do so. We just heard from President Biden. He was asked if he would support Israel striking Iran's oil reserves. Biden left the door open. Do you expect the US to pressure Israel into restraint? Do you think that is a possibility?
Yes and no. I mean, the US will say it's pressuring Israel into limiting its strikes or its response to Iran. They may go after the oil installations, but this will have an impact on the global economy. So they may stay away from that and limit themselves primarily to military installations. I think it's very hard to take anything coming out of Washington seriously these days, to be honest, because they keep saying one thing and then they do the exact opposite. They've been saying for months they don't want an attack on Lebanon. They don't want a new war happening in Lebanon. And, a week later, we find out that there has been a tacit agreement to what is happening right now, the invasion that's happening and the continued attacks against the country. So it's very hard to really take anything. I think Washington is not displaying the diplomatic skills it has, nor is it using the leverage it has to stop this. Washington is the only capital in the world today that has the leverage to say to Israel, enough killing. We need to move to the negotiating table. Lebanon has accepted 1701, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, Maha, and I've reiterated this, and this is on the top of many people's minds, is just what this means regionally and how this is going to be playing out. I mean, I reiterate, this whole limited incursion is what the IDF and Israel is reiterating, and at the same time, we just don't know what that's going to look like in the next few weeks, or months. We don't know, but we also don't know what the end game is. What do you believe the end game is here for Israel?
I'm not sure even Israel has an end game beyond war, seriously, because they declared, I mean, the government of Israel declared that their end game is the return of the displaced from the north. This is definitely not bringing them back to the north. There are genuine and legitimate, I think, fears that there is an intention to reoccupy parts of South Lebanon. We've lived through this movie before. In 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon with the aim of getting the PLO out, it started off as a limited operation, if one goes back in history, but there's always, as one of my colleagues says, there's always the next hill to conquer. And within months, they were at the doorsteps of Beirut. 20,000 people dead, a horrific massacre of Palestinians in Sabra and Shatila. And that's when President Ronald Reagan at the time said, enough, we will stop weapons transfer unless you withdraw and pull back. And effectively, that was the only thing that worked and stopped the war. And this is what President Biden should be doing today, saying enough.